In the heart of the 13th century, an empire emerged from the Eurasian steppes, leaving an indelible mark on history, the Mongol Empire. Their conquests, spanning from East Asia to Eastern Europe, were not simply a series of brutal skirmishes, but a testament to revolutionary military tactics that forever altered the face of warfare. At its zenith, the Mongol Empire, established primarily by Genghis Khan, encompassed over 9 million square miles, a territorial expansion unparalleled in human history. This was achieved not by sheer numbers, but by an army that blended disciplined organization, psychological warfare, unparalleled mobility, and innovative strategies. Our journey into these tactics begins not with a battle, but with the foundation of the Mongol military machine, its rigid yet flexible organizational structure. Before Genghis Khan, born Temujin, unified the warring nomadic tribes, tribal allegiances often dictated battle lines. Genghis fundamentally restructured this. He abolished tribal affiliations within the military, integrating warriors from various clans into decimal units. The smallest unit was a Narban, comprising 10 men. 10 Arbans formed a Zagun, 100. 10 Zagans made a Mingan, 1,000, and 10 Mingans constituted a Tumen, 10,000. This system, while seemingly simple, provided immense tactical advantages. Commanders of these units were chosen not by lineage, but by merit and loyalty to the Khan, fostering a meritocracy that ensured competence at every level of command. This structure allowed for rapid deployment, efficient communication, and cohesive action across vast battlefronts. Orders could be relayed flawlessly from the Khan to the small starband through a network of signal flags, horns, and messengers. Beyond organization, the Mongols mastered the art of mobility, a cornerstone of their tactical prowess. Their primary weapon was not steel, but speed. Each Mongol warrior typically maintained multiple horses, often 3 or 4, sometimes as many as 10, allowing them to switch mounts frequently, preserving the stamina of their animals and ensuring continuous, rapid movement. These horses were hardy, steppe ponies, capable of enduring harsh conditions and covering immense distances with minimal fodder. This multi-horse system meant that Mongol armies could cover 60 to 100 miles a day for extended periods, a pace unmatched by any contemporary army, particularly those bogged down by infantry, heavy siege equipment, and extensive supply trains. This extraordinary mobility allowed them to choose the time and place of engagement, surprise enemies, and conduct lightning-fast retreats and feigned withdrawals. The feigned retreat, or the Sherleg, was perhaps the Mongols' most infamous and effective psychological weapon. This tactic involved a portion of the Mongol army, typically their light cavalry, engaging the enemy, then feigning panic and retreating in disarray. The unsuspecting enemy, often heavily armored European knights or Chinese infantry, would pursue, believing victory was at hand. They would break formation, eager to finish off the fleeing Mongols, only to find themselves led into a prearranged ambush. The retreating Mongols would suddenly turn, often supported by hidden reserves, and unleash a devastating volley of arrows from their composite bows, followed by a thunderous charge. The Battle of the Kalka River, in 1223, against a combined Rus and Cuman force vividly illustrates this. After more than a week of skirmishes and a feigned retreat that drew the coalition into a protracted chase, the Mongols under Subutai and Jebi encircled and annihilated their pursuers, demonstrating the deadly effectiveness of this tactic. Their primary weapon, the composite recurve bow, was arguably the most advanced military technology of its time. Made from layers of horn, sinew, and wood, glued and wrapped with birch bark, these bows had a draw weight of 100 to 160 pounds and a range of over 350 yards. While a medieval English longbow had a similar range, the Mongol composite bow could penetrate plate armor at closer distances and was highly effective while mounted. A skilled Mongol archer could loose 10 to 12 arrows per minute, raining down a cloud of arrows that demoralized and decimated enemy formations. Importantly, they could shoot accurately in all directions from a cantering horse, a skill requiring immense training and coordination that European knights, skilled only in forward charges, simply couldn't replicate. The effectiveness of their archery was not just in quantity, but in precision and targeting. They aimed for vulnerable points, faces, joints, and also for horses, dismounting enemy cavalry to render them slower and more susceptible to subsequent charges. Psychological warfare was an integral component of Mongol strategy. They understood that fear and demoralization could win bat. Less before the first arrow was fired. Their reputation for ruthlessness, often deliberately exaggerated through disinformation and tales carried by fleeing refugees, preceded them. Cities that resisted faced utter destruction, their populations massacred to serve as a gruesome warning to others. Khwarezmid cities like Urgench, Merv, and Nishapur, which dared to defy Genghis Khan, saw their populations systematically slaughtered, sometimes numbering hundreds of thousands. Merv, in modern-day Turkmenistan, reportedly had over 1 million inhabitants massacred in 1221, though this number is likely an exaggeration by historians biased against the Mongols. But nonetheless, the sheer scale of the terror struck fear into every city on the Mongols' path. This tactic often led to surrender without a fight, saving Mongol lives and resources. Another facet of their psychological assault was their use of terror tactics in battle. Mongols would often tie branches to their horses' tails to kick up huge clouds of dust, making their forces appear numerically larger than they actually were. Night attacks, a rarity in medieval warfare due to coordination difficulties, were also employed to disorient and terrify unsuspecting adversaries. Their disciplined screams and battle cries, orchestrated to sound like a unified, relentless force, amplified the psychological pressure on their enemies. Siege warfare, traditionally a weakness for nomadic armies, was meticulously adapted and mastered by the Mongols. Initially, they lacked the expertise for intricate siege engineering. However, they rapidly assimilated knowledge and skilled engineers from conquered populations, particularly from China and Persia. They employed captured engineers, like those from the Khwarezmid Empire, to construct advanced trebuchets, ballistas, and siege ladders. When besieging a city, the Mongols would often offer terms of surrender. Defiance meant annihilation. They would use human shields, forcing captured civilians or prisoners of war in the vanguard of their assault waves, making resistance difficult for the besieged who might be firing upon their own countrymen. They also diverted rivers to flood cities, tunneled under walls, and built circumvallation lines to starve out strongholds. The Siege of Xiangyang, 1268 to 1273, in southern China under Kublai Khan, lasting 5 years, exemplifies their persistence and adaptive use of siege technology, including advanced traction trebuchets, capable of hurling massive stones. Chinese engineers perfected these war machines. Logistics and intelligence were surprisingly sophisticated. Despite the common perception of nomadic tribes as haphazard, the Mongols excelled in planning and reconnaissance. Before any major campaign, extensive recon missions Nukud were sent deep into enemy territory weeks or months in advance. These scouts gathered vital intelligence on terrain, enemy troop movements, fortifications, and supply routes. This intelligence was critical for planning their swift maneuvers and ambushes. Their supply lines were minimal, as they lived off the land and carried dried meat borts, a concentrated form of mutton or beef that could be carried in small pouches, as well as skumis, fermented mare's milk. Their horses could forage for themselves, further reducing logistical burdens. This self-sufficiency contrasted sharply with European armies that required vast, slow-moving supply trains. The coordination of multipletumens across vast geographical areas was another hallmark of Mongol strategy. In 1241, during the invasion of Europe, separate Mongol armies converged almost simultaneously on widely separated targets. Three Tumens invaded Poland, led by Baidar and Khadan, destroying Sandomierz and Krakow before defeating Duke Henry II, the Pious of Silesia, at the Battle of Legnica on April 9, 1241. On the very next day, April 10th, a different Mongol army under Subutai and Batu Khan annihilated the main Hungarian army led by King Bela IV at the Battle of Mohi. This simultaneous, coordinated assault, hundreds of miles apart, demonstrated an unparalleled level of communication, planning, and execution, utterly bewildering their European adversaries. Each Mongol Tumen acted as a self-sufficient unit, capable of independent operations according to a broader strategic plan. The Battle of Legnica itself offers crucial insights into Mongol tactics. The Polish, fragmented German, and Bohemian forces, though formidable, were outmaneuvered. The Mongols again employed the feigned retreat, drawing the heavily armored European cavalry into a pursuit, only to turn and shower them with arrows. The use of smoke screens and loud, confusing noises, possibly from gunpowder devices or specifically designed drums, further disoriented the enemy, creating chaos and allowing the lighter, more agile Mongol cavalry to exploit gaps in the disarrayed formations. This clash between the heavy, shock cavalry of Europe and the mobile, missile cavalry of the Mongols highlighted a fundamental difference in military philosophy. Europe relied on the decisive, thunderous charge. The Mongols favored attrition, harassment, and overwhelming firepower from a distance, followed by precise, coordinated charges. The Mongol command structure fostered fierce loyalty. Genghis Khan himself rose from humble beginnings, and his laws, Thyasa, applied equally to all, from the lowest soldier to the highest general. This meritocratic system, combined with shared plunder, motivated soldiers profoundly. Loyalty was cemented, not just through fear, but through the promise of advancement and reward. Soldiers were forbidden from looting individually until a battle was decisively won, and loot allocation was meticulously managed by appointed officials, the noyons and begs. This ensured discipline and prevented the dispersal of forces that often plagued other armies after victory. Discipline was paramount. A single urban member deserting in battle faced execution. If an entire urban deserted, the whole zagan was decimated. Such rigid enforcement ensured that every soldier fought with unparalleled ferocity and stayed in formation. This contrasted starkly with the often unruly and undisciplined feudal levies of Europe. Their discipline also extended to their daily lives and marches, where they would move in complete silence to further confuse enemy scouts and to conserve energy. Beyond their practical tactics, the Mongol military innovation lay in its adaptability. They were not bound by dogma. When they encountered fortifications resistant to their initial methods, they learned and adapted. When facing heavily armored knights, they developed specialized armor-piercing arrows and tactics to dismount them. When conquering different cultures, they integrated local military expertise into their ranks, from Chinese siege engineers to Turkic cavalry and Persian administrators. This open-mindedness to new technologies and ideas was a significant advantage over more rigid militaries who stuck to traditional methods. The Mongol emphasis on combined arms tactics was ahead of its time. While primarily cavalry, their armies were not uniform. They comprised light archer cavalry, heavy lancers, and support units. Light cavalry would pepper the enemy with arrows, softening them up. Heavy lancers would then charge in, breaking formations, while light cavalry continued to harass flanks. Crucially, they integrate engineers, logistics personnel, and even medical units into their march, making them true multifunctional forces. The communications network, THIAM, was a further, less visible, but equally crucial tactical innovation. This system of postal relay stations, strategically placed across the empire, allowed messages and orders to travel remarkable distances in a short time. Messengers, riding in relays, could cover hundreds of miles a day, ensuring that the Khan's commands reached even the furthest commanders promptly. This sophisticated intelligence and communication system facilitated the synchronized movements and complex strategies that astonished their opponents. Without the YAM, the coordinated campaigns across vast distances, like the invasions of Europe or the campaigns in the Middle East, would have been impossible. The campaigns of Subutai in particular highlight a tactical genius that deserves special mention. Subutai, one of Genghis Khan's most brilliant generals, orchestrated the European campaign with a strategic vision rarely seen in history. His ability to control and coordinate multiple armies operating independently, to envelop vast regions, and to choose decisive battle locations after extensive reconnaissance, speaks volumes about Mongol military leadership. He understood the terrain, the enemy's strengths and weaknesses, and masterfully exploited them. For instance, in the lead-up to the Battle of Mohi, Subutai's forces feigned a retreat across the Esajo River, drawing the Hungarians into a false sense of security, only to unleash a surprise attack under cover of darkness, crossing the river at multiple points and employing powerful traction trebuchets to clear obstacles. The psychological impact of Mongol warfare cannot be overstated. The tales of their cruelty were not merely incidental, they were a calculated part of their strategy. The destruction of cities, the systematic slaughter, and the terror instilled in populations were designed to break the will of their enemies even before armies met on the battlefield. Historical accounts, though potentially embellished, describe instances of people willingly surrendering entire cities and provinces simply to avoid the wrath that befell those who resisted. This saved the Mongols time, resources, and lives, allowing them to continue their relentless expansion. Even in their defeats, the Mongols demonstrated adaptability. The Battle of Ain Jalut in 1260, where the Mamluks decisively defeated the Mongol forces of the Ilkhanate, highlighted limitations but also illustrated their swift learning. While this marked the high tide of Mongol expansion into the Middle East, it showed that disciplined, well-led resistance, combined with innovative tactics, like the Mamluks' use of feigned retreats and countercharges in their own right, could halt them. However, it did not diminish the lasting impact of Mongol military innovations, which continued to influence warfare for centuries. Their enduring legacy can be seen in subsequent military thinking. The emphasis on mobility, intelligence, psychological operations, and combined arms, while perhaps not fully replicated by others, became recognized as critical elements of successful warfare. Even today, modern military strategists study the Mongol campaigns for insights into maneuver warfare, logistics, and command and control. The speed and coordination of the Mongol armies, considered ancient wonders, find echoes in modern mechanized warfare. The Mongol Empire's military tactics were a cocktail of brutal efficiency, brilliant strategy, and relentless innovation. From the decimal system of organization to the devastating composite bow, the feigned retreat, their mastery of siege warfare, and their profound understanding of psychological impact, every aspect of their military machine was design. D for conquest. They were not merely barbarians on horseback. They were pioneers who changed the very definition of warfare, leaving behind a legacy that reverberates through the annals of military history, proving that genius and ferocity, meticulously applied, can forge an empire of unparalleled scale. Their influence is a testament to the enduring power of adaptability and strategic brilliance in the art of war.